Beto, thank you so much for the opportunity, and for me it is certainly a great pleasure to be able to present one of the businesses that I'm heavily involved in and passionate about, because this is something that all of us, if nothing is done, certainly our kids will be suffering dramatically from it. The rainforest. The rainforest is probably one of the most complex areas on Earth. It may be as dangerous as the slopes in Davos in terms of death threats, but certainly less prone to accidents of the type that Arman, I think, went through today. BCG, they put a value of about $150 trillion on the total forest coverage of the Earth, and most of that value comes out of the ability of the forest to absorb CO2. And if you then make the calculation, most of that value is in the tropical forests, because in the tropical forests, the growth due to high insulation and high rainfall makes the conversion much more efficient than, for example, in the northern areas where the forests are relatively slow growing. So this all started about 10 years ago, when it was still not clear that we were going to end up with this path. I met my Brazilian partner, Flavio de Meira Penna. He's a passionate, he used to be actually on the barricades of the environmental move back in the day. And now he's able to do this for real. The first 5 years we were doing all kinds of iterations, just like most of the time happens with entrepreneurial activities. You try to find the right way. And for the last 5 years, this is now crystallized in what we call ASF Brazil, which is the commercial part of what we're going to look at today. There we are doing this for profit and doing very well. That is now a business which is growing at about 50% a year, and we want to do more. But we realize that we cannot do this alone, even though we are probably the biggest or one of the biggest employers in the state of Acre now. We cannot do this alone. So therefore, Nemus comes into play, and let's look at that. Here, just for you to see where we're located. So we are in the very northwestern part of the Amazon. The Amazon is basically this area, the legal Amazon. This is the state of Acre. It's one of the states that is still very well forested, but most of the other areas here, this is the frontier where the soy production is moving north. We'll come to that in a little bit. But importantly here, what I want to show, just so you get an idea, the distance from here down to São Paulo, where most of the processing is done the way the businesses work normally, this is about 3,500 kilometers on partially very good roads. Brazil is fairly good in infrastructure, but also partially very bad roads. But above all, a distance that for trucking is quite environmentally not optimal.
Yeah.
We do have to truck a short distance to one of the affluents to the Amazon in Porto Velho, which is about, I would say, so it's about here. And then it goes on barges down to Manaus and Santarém. And from there on Panamax ships, we export to the US, Asia, and Europe. The business itself, just a few words. This is what we do. So we buy land and buy concessions upon which we do natural sustainable forestry. That means that you, on a plot of land, you divide it sort of in 30 different plots. The cycle for a tree to grow back in the Amazon is about 30 years. So you do one of those plots every year. So after 30 years, you come back to the first plot, and there all the trees are then, the young trees have grown up to big commercial trees, and then you can repeat the process. So it's kind of a cycle, which also reinvigorates the forest, because you're taking down old trees, letting the sun in, other trees will then be replacing those old trees. We also do reforestation, very important point, on above all degraded land. And what the other players are certainly not doing is we are adding all of the value close to the forest. The other guys, remember the map, they take it down to Sao Paulo, they ship literally a lot of waste, and then they process it close to Sao Paulo, Curitiba, ship it out through Santos and Paranagua. We add the value locally, and thereby we bring jobs to the local community, a lot of the time to indigenous communities as well. We don't ship waste along long lines of transport, and the waste that we produce, we use as fuel in our bioenergy plants right there at the processing plant. And this is what creates actually quite attractive profits. These are some of the examples of the products. This here, for example, the plywood here, this one we export mostly to Home Depot and to Lowe's in the US. Other than that, in Switzerland, Ipe is widely used for all kinds of decking purposes. This here just confirms we're doing the sustainable natural forestry. And these two guys were filmed by one of our teams in a place called Antimari in the state of Acre. And to have the jaguars back in an area where we're doing natural sustainable forestry is an extremely good sign, because they are the apex of the biome. And you have those guys back, you know that all the rest in the forest is probably working quite well as well. So we are very, very proud of this here. Now, unfortunately, everything is not tickety-boo.
79-year-old Gertrude Frere and her family settled in the Amazon rainforest 50 years ago, where they were met with an abundance of land and rain. But now, the nearby stream is more of a trickle. More and more of the forest is being cut down, and scientists are worried the Amazon is nearing its so-called tipping point. The tipping point refers to a limit after which the rainforest loses the ability to sustain itself. In other words, the Amazon and local climate will have changed so radically as to trigger the death of the rainforest. The consequences for biodiversity and climate change would be devastating, extinguishing thousands of species and releasing such a colossal quantity of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that it would sabotage attempts to limit global climate change. Scientists have not yet decided where exactly the Amazon tipping point is. Some researchers argue that current modelling isn't sophisticated enough to predict such a moment at all. But evidence is mounting that in certain areas, localised iterations of the tipping point may already be happening. Ecologist Ben Marimon Jr. has spent many years monitoring the rainforest.
E é exatamente esse o mecanismo do tipping point. A gente chega a ponto de não retorno, porque a floresta não consegue se regenerar mais. E esse efeito vai progredindo floresta dentro. Ano a ano, mais e mais floresta dentro. Então é um gigantesco efeito de borda, que começa é um abraço mortal da floresta amazônica.
The Amazon covers an area roughly the size of the contiguous United States and accounts for more than half of the world's rainforest. It exerts power over the carbon cycle like no other terrestrial ecosystem on Earth. For example, the tree loss from an extremely dry year in 2005 released a quantity of CO2 into the atmosphere equivalent to the annual emissions of Europe and Japan combined. That's according to a study published in Science magazine. Even as science learns more about the devastating impact of deforestation, it has surged under President Jair Bolsonaro, who supports further opening the Amazon for mining and agriculture. Deforestation remains at a level not seen in Brazil since 2008, and in 2020, an area larger than Lebanon was cut from the rainforest. Meanwhile, the Frere family members are trying their best to protect themselves from drought by diversifying their business and planting trees around water sources.
E saí fugindo da seca. Chegamos aqui, era uma fartura de água, muita chuva, muita água, muito pasto. Muito bom para sobreviver. Mas infelizmente a seca chegou aqui também. Onde que eu senti a necessidade de reflorestar, porque eu sempre quis que não derrubasse as nascentes.
But running out of water is likely to remain a constant and very real threat.
Yeah, so basically what seems to be happening is that on the fringes of the Amazon, the drought is also affecting it now. That makes the trees weaker. And then if you reach this tipping point eventually, then the trees, the forest, the Amazon itself will not be able to heal itself. And that is the big problem. And to come back to the introduction I said, I don't know whether I mentioned, I don't think I did, Jure Levine. We talked about him some time ago. He's the founder of Waze and some other flash unicorns. Some of you, I think, know him quite well. And when asked about, how do you achieve success, he said, well, first of all, you got to identify a really, really, really big problem. I find it hard to find anything bigger than this, except some other stuff that's going on around us. But this is really a big problem, and it will require that a lot of people support in it. So in order to be able to attack the problem, you got to know what is the actual problem. And it turns out that land usage, meaning this is man-made decisions. You open up to agriculture, to produce soy, to feed the cows. You open up to allow cows and bulls to graze. Mining to a lesser extent, but still. And then you clear these areas either through cutting or through fire. If you do the fire, it's a triple disaster, because not only are you immediately releasing all of the CO2 that was trapped in there in the trees, but you also don't recuperate any value out of it. If you cut it at least, then you will at least have the logs. The second one, and this is the horror, because the rising temperatures themselves are affecting and creating these droughts. So unless we actually do something to turn this around, this will continue to weaken the forest. And even if we don't do anything, the forest will continue to become smaller and smaller. Thirdly, you have the unsustainable logging, which is done big time in Brazil. And then finally, you have the fires. This is most of what we see when CNN is reporting about the Amazon. You see these fires. They say everything is burning down. This is actually a relatively small portion of the threat to the Amazon. And often it's also created by lightnings and so on. So it's an area that we have to address as well, try to avoid it, but it's not the size of these, which you see here. So I mentioned the study of BCG, and they tried to put values to all of these different factors. And the human-made or the human-decided land use change is the biggest threat. So we've got to know that. The rising temperature is nearly as big as that one. So 425 million hectares at risk here over 20 years, or over 30 years, between 2020 and 2050, and 400 million hectares here, so nearly the same size. And then you have the unsustainable logging, which we are directly addressing as well, with 65 million hectares. So this is the problem, and this is then where Nemus.earth comes into play. So here you got to put on your social, environmental, economic hat, and now also for our sake, maybe your technological hat, so that we can discuss and brainstorm around how can we get this solved. But Nemus.earth is a non-profit that was established to protect, preserve the planet's natural resources and habitats. We're starting obviously with what we know in the Amazon. And we want to create a sustainable model meaning creating economic activity in the rainforest so that the need to destroy it is no longer there. If you create a sustainable forestry operation for people that are squatting, for example, we often employ squatters in our business, they no longer need to cut down the forest or burn down the forest. They work with us instead. So what we are trying to do with Nemus is to link the physical world, the real world, with the world of crypto, and sort of create an ecosystem for the Amazon, and then hopefully for the Congo Basin, maybe for the rainforest in Asia as well, if we are successful with this. So the concept is that we, with the proceeds when we sell the NFTs publicly, and we'll come to that at the end here, we will get funds to strategically buy assets around this belt. This is the legal Amazon I was describing before. You can see here that the state of Acre is fairly green still, whereas the state of Rondônia down here, I would say 60% of it has already been wiped out. And this used to be as green as this here. And this is the result of the soy and the cattle pushing further and further north every year. So we would like to buy forests in this area, because if we have clear ownership, you reduce the risk of squatters. If you have economic activity there, you also reduce the incentives for people to go in and destroy the forest. There's a law in Brazil, by the way, also, which says that if your forest is unproductive and it sits there just doing nothing, you don't have a strong case against potential squatters, because you have to keep the land productive, and you can do that with sustainable forestry, making a nice profit. So why not do what is good for everybody, right? The way it works, we sell the NFTs as a promise to preserve. It is not a claim on ownership of the land. In Brazil, you cannot legally, as a foreigner, go in and buy 100% land. So it's a claim as a promise to preserve, and it's a claim on the economic activities that are done on that land. So we'll come to that a little bit later. So the funds which are then raised, they are received by Nemus, and Nemus buys the land and pays for the cost of operating that land. And all of the profits that come out of this system is reinvested in the Nemus ecosystem. And we do this through the Guardians, which we hope all of you will become. That is then, let me explain a little bit how that would work. So here you have the Nemus ecosystem. Here are the Guardians that invest in the NFT. The NFT, the proceeds from the NFT is then used either to buy the land and sort of run the operations through Nemus, or it goes, and the rest goes into the treasury, and the proceeds from the land and economic activity that also goes into the treasury. And the treasury holds the funds for all economic activities and additional community benefits, which then kind of becomes, let's call it the central bank for this little area here. The Guardians, they purchase the NFTs, they get the NEA token rewards when they stake the land. Depending on the size of what they stake, they get rewards. And also there will be gaming in this ecosystem, which also produces profits. Then you have the sponsor. So we get some sponsors, and they sponsor land drops, to fill NEA tokens for the mining here, for the rewards. And then finally, all of the participants, they can vote in the DAO and decide on what is to be done in this ecosystem. So the basis for all of this is you buy land. And Flavio, my partner, he was just now in the Amazon discussing with the owners of the portion that is going to constitute the first drop. So we're looking at 40,000 hectares. That's about 90,000 acres. For the first drop, we're going to use 10,000 hectares. Those 10,000 hectares are then divided into small plots. The smallest ones are 1/4 of a hectare, then 1 hectare, 4 hectares, 16, 80, and I think maybe 160 or 320 hectares are the largest ones. And the larger piece of land that you get will generate more rewards. So it's kind of the more you participate, the more rewards you will be getting on the NEA token mining side. And what we plan to do is, once this is going, the longer term objective is to create the metaverse for this community, which will then unlock gazillion possibilities for educational gaming, for pure gaming, and for many other quite thrilling activities that you can do based on the content of the forest, the biome, the forest itself. There's 1,000 things, 1 million things that you can do promoting the animal life, the fauna, the flora, etc. The token that we will be using ourselves is the NEA, Nemus Economic Activity, there. The NEA, which we will not be using for the first drop, I'll come to that, but that one will then be our own blockchain solution. And here's this, I had a discussion yesterday with a few of you. We're looking at, it's an Ethereum-based token. We're also considering Polygon. And I had some discussion here with, I think, Carla for some other options. And any input on that side would be highly appreciated, because we have not finalized and decided that yet. But we have decided that we would like to launch it on this sigmoidal curve. So we for the launch, we are down here in terms of, this is the price, and this is the volume that has been put out on the market. So we will be rewarding anyone coming in here, and as the project grows, the initial participants will be rewarded with this price increase, obviously, as long as the demand is there. So what the objective is in this future ecosystem is to create as much utility as we possibly can. The first drop consists of a Brazil nut farm. You see some of the indigenous guys here, maybe from the Yamamada tribe. There's about 6 tribes in that area. And about 40 years ago in this area, there was a plantation for Brazil nuts. What we would like to do, and there were 1.2 million trees, of which about 200,000 have survived, despite that the plantation was abandoned way back then. So we want to restore this area, put in processing equipment, and do the processing, same concept as we do for ASF, close to the forest where the trees are, and then potentially sell these directly to Migros, to Coop, and so on, and thereby the margins obviously much more interesting than if you just supply the raw nuts. Also ecotourism, you can imagine that on the forest areas that we're buying, we will be selling CO2 certificates. That will probably also turn into quite an interesting business in itself. And the first village to benefit would be Pauini. This is a municipality with about 20,000 people living on a size of Switzerland. 4.3 million hectares is in this little community. And they basically, this dates back to that plantation 40 years ago. So there's about, in this village, there's probably about 1,500 people, and more than that. And so lastly, this is the timeline. And today is very special, or this week is very special, because we started the sale of the first tickets to mint the NFTs on Monday. Or a bit more. Yeah, that's good. So here, if you go to this website, and I'll give you the link.
Yeah.
Then you can simply log in. You click here. Maybe if you click on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this comes up.
All right.
And from there on, you can connect to your coin, your wallet, and then you can do the acquisition. And all of this is now done for the Genesis drop, which is ongoing right now. It's in Ether.
Looks great.
And then hopefully, from here we go.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Are there questions from your side?
Yeah.
I've seen done some humanitarian development projects in other parts of the world, and in one case in Indonesia, somebody did something with a shrimp farm. Hi.
With a shrimp farm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shrimp? What? 1, 2. Okay. With the shrimp farm, and he did a lot of things, but it's not working. Oh, no? Okay. He did a lot of things, and everything was ready, and then somebody came up, a local criminal, shot him down and said, I take the shrimps. So how you prevent in your system that if the forest and all the nuts and everything is going on, that not any of the criminals you have in Brazil and the big mafia parties coming up and take everything or cut it down because they say your forest is so nice and so good, so we take it.
If they're going to do that, I mean, once we acquire land, then we have policing capabilities. And that can be done by going around in the forest, or it can be done with satellite and with drones, which we use. So once we have acquired these properties, the risk of that happening is probably reduced by a factor of 10, because it is surveyed.
And the government clearly, also the district government clearly said that they support this project. Or?
Absolutely. Literally so Flavio, he's been meeting with the government officials for quite some time now, and they totally support it. Very important, that's a very good question. And on Monday, he's going to be talking also to the BNDES, which is the Brazilian Development Bank, and they're also very keen on supporting what's going on here. So yes, that's a really good question. And if you go to Congo, for example, which is very important rainforest area, there in Africa, most of the land sits in the hand of the government. So all you can do is you can buy concessions, but you never own the land. In Brazil, it's different. In Brazil, you do have rule of law. Things don't go as smoothly as in Switzerland, probably, but there is rule of law. And the rule of law does protect what we are doing, for sure.
And have you any figures about if we with somebody at the moment? I see this, as you said, an NGO, a project for environment protection. So it's a grant. But you said also there are revenues coming in by the nuts and revenues by the ecoforest trust. Do you have any figures or estimations which are then have an impact to the token as well?
Yes, that's also a good question. So if you reverse the question and say how much land would we need to buy realistically to sort of implement that protective belt that I showed on the map, and we're talking about millions and millions of hectares. Millions and millions of hectares. So the funds that would be needed to do this, and this is why we cannot do it on the commercial basis. I mean, with the ASF Brazil business, we're doing all we can, and right now we're trying to get a $100 million loan for expansion to buy more forest and so on, but it still will be a fairly, not a piss in the ocean, but something in that order. So what we are aiming at here is very, very big. It's a Uri-Levine issue. It's a big, big problem. And the success of it will obviously depend on whether, first of all, the government of Brazil really supports it going forward, but it will very much depend on whether the people that are on the barricades in Europe and in the US saying that Brazil, you got to save your forest. Now you can go to the barricades, but you can also take out your wallet and you can say, okay, I'm gonna support this with more than just words. So that'll make the difference, and we need a lot of money to make this work, a lot.
But there is a long-term perspective. Maybe you have calculated to say, if we buy a lot of land and we have the land, then the income can generate by nuts, by ecotourism, by whatever comes up, is not only covering the current cost, and gives also an increase of the token price, so that's a very, very long term.
Absolutely, yes.
Or is it calculated plus minus zero, so it's just a grant?
No. The objective is absolutely to make it a sustainable and profitable operation that sustains itself, because you cannot any project that requires you to continuously pump funds into it eventually will fail, because somebody is then going to eventually stop. You have to make it viable. And this is what we learned with the commercial, with the ASF Brazil, the commercial business. You can do good in the forest. You create economic activity and very profitable economic activity. You thereby avoid the squatters from coming in, but you also integrate them into the business. So all of a sudden, instead of everything just going south, being sucked into the Rio, São Paulo area with the GDPs, most of Brazil's GDPs is down south. Now we're trying to counterbalance that with GDP creation up north, and we hope that a portion of that GDP creation will be a mini, growing to a big GDP with the Nemus token as the utility in that community. Because so if we establish forest hotels like the picture I showed you, you would be paying with the NEA. So somebody coming from the US would have to exchange some dollars, buy the NEA, and then pay for the room. The Brazil nuts, same, the export of Brazil nuts, you've got to make the exchange. So that is the objective. So the value should appreciate, hopefully beyond the sigmoidal curve that we had, the bonding curve that we had there.
Sure.
Any other?
So one question. What do they think? So when people buy this, coin, Nemus coin, what do they get? What is their? Do they have an outright for the land? What is it's a utility token, when I get that right? Which
the NEA token is the currency that will allow you to buy the NFT.
Okay.
For the first drop, it's the Ether, but over time we're going to exchange that for our own token. But so that gives you the currency to buy the NFT. The NFT is then linked to the actual land. It doesn't give you ownership to the land, because you cannot, as a foreigner, go into Brazil and buy up a bunch of land. So the land is held by the non-profit Nemus Foundation, and then the economic benefit that derives out of that land, that goes to the NFT holders. Okay. So that's how you don't get ownership, you pledge to preserve, but you get economic benefit. So it's kind of, you see it as you can see it as an investment return.
Like a loan, basically.
Basically with a return. Yeah.
We just had a discussion about the Rainforest Brazil. a different story. Nevertheless, it has to do with NFT, etc., and it solves really a big problem. And in the luxury industry, there is also a really big problem with all this fraud, etc., and you are really the expert in that space as lead blockchain of Richemont, who has quite a very strong basis not only in Switzerland and Europe, but also in China, as I learned so far. And the challenge is huge to solve this kind of problem. And Pedro, please explain us what the challenge is and explain it what you do, etc. Thank you, Pedro, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rito, for having me. It's a pity that I cannot be there with you, but after 2 years I managed to get COVID, so that's life, unfortunately. So as you mentioned, I'm blockchain lead at Richemont, which is a luxury conglomerate, and yes, if I'm performing this task, is obviously because the group is exploring the opportunities that the technology offers to increase value on existing business cases and maybe to open new markets or new revenue streams, right? But today we want to focus maybe on one specific topic, which is the counterfeits, right? And maybe we will see an angle that is not that far from your previous conversation, right? The topic of your previous conversation. So basically, the counterfeiting topic, in my opinion, flows around three different areas: provenance, ownership, and transparency. Right? I just prepared a couple of slides, very simple. I use the slides just to lay the topic and to put a few data, but I don't want, it's the afternoon, after lunch, probably after a wonderful morning in the slopes, so I don't want to bore anyone. So I will try to be quick and favor a bit the discussion afterwards. So the most obvious element on the counterfeiting is the provenance, right? Everybody knows that fake watches is an issue, but as you can see there, it's a big issue for the industry, right? Each year, China specifically makes more fake luxury watches than the actual number of legit luxury watches made in Switzerland, right? 40 million versus 23.7, right? And this represents an average of 4.5 billion Swiss francs losses for the Swiss industry, only for the Swiss industry, right? So it's a very big issue, and it's a very big issue not only for the industry, obviously, but also for the consumers. In this sense, obviously, our target customer is demanding us to take a stand on the problem. But if you see in the screen, so 50% that have purchased a watch online in the last months have purchased a counterfeited watch, right? So it's a problem for our customers, but we need to also see which type of customers do we want to have, because 80% they would do it again. This means that there is a big amount of these customers that purchased a counterfeited watch that they already knew they were purchasing a counterfeited watch. So are these actually our customers? it's a question that we need to think, and in my opinion, the technology help us to solve. Probably not an obvious angle, but something to take into account. For those customers that they don't want to purchase fakes, that they want the legit, it's also a problem. And these customers, as I said before, they demand us, an answer as an industry, an answer, right? Otherwise, what is at stake is the brand reputation. The second point is the ownership, right? When we purchase a watch, maybe even this watch might be legit, but it might be stolen. That's another angle of the problem, right? So counterfeiters, usually we identify counterfeiters with people making the fake watches, but we could put in the same bag as the people just stealing watches and reselling them for a fraction of the price, or for even more, right? And if you look at the figures, only in Europe, 70,000 luxury watches are stolen each year. That's a lot, 70,000. If you start thinking about the average price of a watch, let's say, for example, 5,000 to 10,000, right? You imagine the amount of money and the impact in terms of money that this problem poses, and only about 5% of them are recovered, right? Another issue, and there in this angle is not only the watch industry which is impacted. We have obviously the authorities, we have the insurance companies, obviously impacted. So that's another angle. And then the transparency, right? So first of all, the provenance in terms of probably you are familiar, and if not, you are going to be familiar in a second. The second-hand or pre-owned market is growing in general terms, in terms, especially in fashion and luxury. We are starting to consume more second-hand products in good condition, obviously, and this is partially due to sustainable reasons. Right, we are in the process of transitioning to a circular mindset where we want to ensure that we consume in a responsible and efficient way, and buying secondhand is something that makes is part or is complementary to this. I would say buying. But I would also say selling in the topic that we are speaking about, right? Because obviously a second-hand sale can be done peer-to-peer, or can be done through an entity, through a marketplace or whatever. So in this transaction, we need to first warranty that the product is legit, and we need a guarantee also that the seller is the rightful owner, right? We need this kind of transparency. I put some figures there about the size of the market predicted by 2025, 30 billion market, not bad. Today, 1 out of 3 customers are willing to go for a second-hand watch, and there are a lot of different factors that impact in this decision. In some cases, lower price, obviously for watches that are are not very specific. Discontinued models, so I cannot find anymore this specific model new. For investment, for sustainability reasons, etc. Right, and the price tag here is important. It's usually driven by scarcity, but it can be even enhanced by this component of transparency, right? And then on the transparency side, not only on this angle, but also on the sustainability side. So 60% of watch consumers already consider sustainable aspects before purchasing a watch, right? 60%, more than half. If we go to younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, this percentage goes over 70%. So that's what's coming. It's the clear direction. There's no turning back. And there is a prediction for me. I take this with a grain of salt. I would say it's even higher, but 30% of jewelry. I couldn't find the figure for the watch, but jewelry sales sustainability influenced by 2025, which is in 3 years, right? So clearly, as a companies, we need to be transparent. All companies needs to be transparent, and luxury is not an exception. I would say it's even more important for luxury companies and for watches, for watch manufacturers to be transparent, because customers are considering the environmental side, the social side, equality. Obviously, we don't want to purchase anything from companies supporting conflict. And sadly for us, we are living these days a conflict which is not very far from us. And I'm sure all of us, we have seen in different social networks, petitions to different brands, not necessarily luxury, to cease operations in one country or another. So this is a concern, and the transparency, I would say, is probably the broader topic of these ones. So, having laid out the ground with a few figures and very briefly, because we don't have a lot of time, how can we tackle this problem? We decided that at Richemont to replace our paper-based certificates with digital-based certificates, and for different reasons. They are more durable, obviously. They are not a bit more immune to degradation or to lose it. They are also easier in order to transport different types of information, to link it to the watch, and also to link it to the client. And with blockchain, we found the perfect technology to have all this, plus guaranteeing the anonymity of the customer, right? So with the digital certificates, we are able to include there not only the information about the watch, right, when it was purchased, the chain of ownership between the different owners. We're able to put additional information there, also to engage the customers, such as transparency information, where the materials are coming from, obviously cool things or useful things like the user guides, some videos about the watch, about the brand, etc. Right? But this is just the beginning. When we start tackling these problems, we see that with a digital certificate, it's already good, but with blockchain, it gets even better. Why? Because with blockchain, we have an independent layer, right? Fully decentralized, is not owned or managed by a single entity. So it's absolutely transparent and agnostic. The information that we put there is the information that it is, and all parties involved on each transaction are able to check the information in the blockchain at any time, right? So when the brand generates a digital certificate in the blockchain, the brand wallet is used, and this can be checked afterwards. When a customer purchases the watch and get the ownership of the digital certificate, it also uses a wallet, and this can be checked afterwards, right? All the information is tracked and stored properly in the blockchain. So first of all, how this is helping us in the provenance, right? In the provenance aspect, the brand is generating the certificate, and this is provable, right? Even let's put on a extreme case, and when I say extreme is in terms of skills. Extreme, but very common these days is, let's take a customer which is not tech savvy, doesn't know about blockchain, etc. The customer wants to purchase a second-hand watch and claims and asks the previous owner or the original owner to share the information with him. The original owner can share the information from the digital certificate, and this person, not tech savvy, could go to the brand and could say, could you please tell me if this certificate has been generated by you? It's very simple and very effective, right? Some people will say, okay, how are you linking the watch, the physical watch, with the digital? Well, we are putting information there, you know, the serial numbers and so on. Yes, but the physical watch can be replaced, obviously. But this cannot be done at a scale. We could have small cases in these terms, but this could not be done at a scale, because eventually the counterfeiter would need also to replace the information in the digital certificate, which is not as easy as to tamper with as to just replace the watch, right? In terms of the product, we also store in the blockchain associated to the digital certificate different events of the product life cycle, right? When the watch goes for a service, when a piece needs to be changed or whatever, right? And this is very important because, especially in the context of a second-hand sale, it's important. It's like our service book for the car, right? But in this case, for the watch, and is there transparent and also anonymized. All the sale events are obviously recorded, but no personal information is stored in the blockchain. So in terms of ownership, it's also clear how this helps, and also in terms of transparency. In terms of transparency, why? Because a lot of events become, and a lot of information around the watch becomes transparent, but at the same time, if the brand decides to put information there about the ownership of the materials, the manufacture process, how the sourcing is done, the transport and shipping on the different stages of the watch, that is also a statement. Let's take into consideration that information in the blockchain is going to stay there forever, right? So this in a nutshell, I hope it's more or less clear, but this in a nutshell is what we have built. And we have decided to build also this, taking into account our customers. As I mentioned before, I put extreme case. It's not that extreme, and it's very common. The majority of the people are not tech savvy, right? And the majority of the people is not aware, for example, about what blockchain is, less even about how to set up a wallet, for example. So there is a lot of friction for the customers on that side, right? When I listen to people speaking about blockchain, these days less, but 2-3 years ago, this was very common. Everybody was speaking, with blockchain, we are going to be able to do this, to do that. The focus of everyone was, 10, 15 years ahead, right? It was put in an ideal situation where a transition was already done. But what happened between now, right, and that moment, I think that's also important. If today we start giving all our digital certificates to customers with a traditional blockchain wallet, I would bet that I would feel fortunate if 10% of these customers already managed to set up the wallet and claim the certificate, right? We would lose 80-90% of adoption just because of friction with the technology, right? So in the design of the solution, we need to take this into consideration. The traditional the traditional wallets such as MetaMask or this type of wallets are non-custodial, meaning that me as an individual have the ownership and the responsibility as well to manage my own keys. And if I lose my keys, obviously I lose my assets, right? This was one of the friction points. And what we have decided is to take a kind of intermediate approach. We said, okay, what if we take an approach where we implement a custodial wallet? We will custody the keys and will operate the keys of our customers on their behalf in order to reduce the friction. This will enable us to enhance the user experience. This will enable us to provide more information to the customers, to make a smoother introduction for our customers in the crypto and blockchain world, and crypto, not cryptocurrency, but all the different NFTs and all this technology, and it will help us also to increase adoption and to foster the education of our customers in this new technology. And we did it with some premises. First of all, it was very important for us to avoid do something meaningless, right? Meaningless in this case being, okay, we are trying to aim for a decentralized technology, but doing it in a centralized way. So we have designed a system in collaboration with our partners that is, first of all, very robust, is very secure. And on these 2 points, by design, we guarantee that no administrator on the company is able to get access to the keys of any specific client. Let's even operate with them, right? So only the customer with a valid session with the system of his choice can operate the customers, operates the keys and perform the transactions, even if they are managed by us. And then in the future, we are also prepared, our system is prepared to segregate these keys, right? So in 5, 10, 15 years, when, when blockchain starts becoming more mainstream, the average customer start being more educated and more knowledgeable about what is blockchain and what it implies, we will be able to start segregating these keys, which they will already have associated all their assets with all the transactions and all the history. So no new transactions involved, anything. So, well, this is in a nutshell what we have built. I hope it's clear enough. And Reto, I think now.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Pedro. Absolutely a perfect summary, in my view, of 3 different areas of pain the industry has, and I see everywhere now possibilities to, I mean, if you just look at the ownership area, I mean, only about 5% are recovered. Give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. Why is this the case? Is that because of the police forces are not as good, or what is the reason?
No. Think about something. The watch is a small element, right?
Yeah.
So the watch can be stolen from your house. It can be stolen, if you go into do sports and you remove it from your sports bag. Right. It can be even stolen from your arm if somebody, robbed you in the street. And in a matter of hours, it can be even out of the country, right? How these small items can be traced. Some years ago, 10 years ago, actually, my car at the moment was stolen, and I went to the police, and they say, "Look, we are very sorry, but most probably your car is now going to a third world country or whatever." So if that can be done with a car, an object such that size, imagine with a watch. Most of then you put a complaint at the police, which is a local team. It's a local jurisdiction. The watch is being sent to another country, which maybe they have no trace or no agreement with your country or the country where the watch has been stolen. So it's a big problem, and usually all these watches that are recovered either because they are very, very specific pieces, so everybody know what needs to be where to look at and what to look for, or in most cases they are recovered because they are not exclusive pieces, but with the complaint, the police just calls the brand, and the brands have in their database the possibility to flag a watch as stolen.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. There is a question from Douglas. Maybe I hand over the mic.
Well, it's two questions. One which is related to the theft check, and I think with your effort with the blockchain, where you have the data, the serial number, reference number, you have all the data about the watch, and you can basically share that with not only with the local police, but with there are some entities that are doing central theft check registers. I can share some of those ideas if you're not. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of some of them. But with the new technology that you're implementing, this must become much easier because you can instantly share data over the globe.
Absolutely, yes, and not only that. With blockchain, it's even the owner who could declare his or her own watch as stolen, and it will represent a transaction in the blockchain that might appear in the history of the watch. So, as you mentioned, it's global, right? Because there is one single certificate for that specific watch that has been generated by the brand. So everybody knows where to look at in order to find this information, and this certificate, being global, can be used by the different authorities, being the police in any country, but also by another partners, for example, by the insurance companies. Right? What happened when usually when the insurance company, in the event of a stolen watch, after a few weeks or months, the insurance just reimburse the customer with the agreed fee, and that's it. What happens if the watch is recovered afterwards? The watch is property of the insurance company. So even with blockchain, we can orchestrate this, transfer the ownership to the watch company, which will see what to do with it. So clearly, and as I mentioned before, the tricky point is right now we don't see this as an immediate solution right now. We need to see the situation from a high level perspective, and going step by step. We're implementing these days a solution that will take a bit of time to take effect, and this effect will come with the majority of the customers and the population being knowledgeable about these certificates. When the customer knows that there is a digital certificate associated to each watch and wants to purchase a second-hand watch, it will reclaim by default the proof of ownership from the person who is trying to sell the watch. Same as we do. There is a clear parallelism with cars, with the car industry in this sense. The same actions that we do when we want to buy a second-hand car, we will do with watches, for example. But all this orchestrated with blockchain. This will come with education, and there will be one point where it won't be possible to sell a fake watch because unless you as a customer want to purchase a fake watch, right? And there is a foundation in Geneva called Fondation Auto-Horlogerie, so High Watch Foundation, which since a few years they are promoting the motto "Fake watch, fake customer." Yep. Not fake in the sense of a fake person, but not a customer that the industry is interested in. So we have here a lot of different use cases, a lot of different scenarios that this technology is helping us to tackle.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. We just come to maybe the last question, and then I would like to hand over to Carla, who will explain a little bit from the core technology side, from a supplier side, how to tackle this. I mean, it's always really a very, very tough task because there are so many oracles, so many things to think about. You have to connect with legacy systems. You have to be sure that you, a big company is always a lot of politics, and that's why you you can help there. And you have to if you can't stand the heat in the kitchen, then you're in the wrong position.
Yep.
Nevertheless, let me maybe just give the opportunity for a question.
We are in this business ourselves when it comes to lost and stolen items, and the recovery rate in general is under 1.2%. So having a 5% of a recovery rate is probably, the reason probably for that is that those people who bought that stolen watch didn't know that it was stolen, and they probably send it to repair it or make a service. Is that one reason for that high number?
Yes, exactly. Some people they don't know they are purchasing a watch. Take into account that in the counterfeiting industry is very, very, very sophisticated, right? These days, well, since a few years, a new concept has arisen, which is called the super fake. And the super fake is a fake so good that even the brand has issues to detect it. And so, but not only about the product, there are dealers and retailers that mix legit product with fake product. It's the whole chain that is supporting this. So you can be perfectly comfortable. Obviously, in a boutique that belongs to the brand, we can say you are safe, right? But in a third-party boutique, there is a risk right? I don't want to say that everybody is like that. Far from that. I think most of our retailers are absolutely trustable, and we have a strong relationship with all of them. But it offers a bit more space for that. So same as if you think an online marketplace, right? Which at the end of the day is a retailer, and it's also sophisticated. You can easily purchase a fake watch without knowing it, right? So most of the people, if not all of the people that took the watch to the service, they didn't know they had a fake, or they had a stolen watch. The two things happens usually. Right, some people purchase a fake and they don't know it's a fake, and then they take it to the service, and it's when they learn, or in the case of stolen watches as well, right? So I insist on the solution. When we will reach the moment where the usage of digital certificate is popularized, not only for watches but for a lot of things, we as customers and individuals, we will get used to request these certificates for everything that we are going to purchase, and we will get used to check the provenance. You know, who is the manufacturer, to check if the manufacturer is the legit ones, because the same that there is counterfeiting in the physical world can be counterfeiting in the digital world. And this is where, you know, keys get into the game. Not only the keys of the owner, but of the issuer of the certificate. That's another important thing. So when we will get used to this, you know, I don't say that counterfeiters will disappear, but their life will be extremely harder than compared to today.
Thank you very much, Pedro, for doing this very detailed introduction of what the problem is actually coming from, and how Richemont has solved this. We are very proud and fortunate to be one of the partners who helped Richemont implement this. I would say the main partner as the technological counterpart to implement this. So what Richemont has been doing is they have been working on this project for quite some time, and they selected different partners, and we joined. So the good thing is we joined at the point where the concept was already quite established, very clear, and they knew exactly what they needed, and we could go into implementation rather fast. So I would say the whole project from Richemont's side took probably 2 years, and we were involved for the last 1.5 years now. So I would like to broaden the scope and show you a little bit what we have done, and how this solution is also available for like other products and other ideas and maybe other use cases. So based on what we have implemented there, we've created a product called Luxe ID. So basically we are creating a digital certificate for any kind of luxury product. The fun thing about this is a digital certificate can be for a product or for a person, or actually also for a financial asset. It's always the same technology. It's just you move between a fungible token and a non-fungible token. But in the end, it's always the same implementation process. So, and this is what core technology has been specialized in. We basically tokenize. We tokenize products like we did for this project. We tokenize persons in the sense of creating digital identities, and we tokenize digital assets in the sense of creating digital representations of existing financial assets. So, but the subject for this afternoon is the tokenization of products and the creation of digital certificates. So, In essence, to explain it in simple words, we are creating a digital twin of the existing product. And this digital twin is a non-fungible token that you can put on any kind of blockchain and you store in any kind of wallet, depending on the blockchain that you choose. Now, I think what Pedro Lopez has explained is something that has started now. There are various brands that have started to go into this area. We know that Breitling has already implemented some steps in this direction. I also saw that Hublot did some e-registrations for their watches. So this aim to fight against counterfeits is definitely around, and all watch industries, all watch brands are actually looking into ways how to use blockchain technology to improve this pain, or to eliminate this pain. So when you create a digital twin, what is in essence because now this right now it sounds very theoretical. Yes, I will have a digital twin of my watch, but this all sounds a bit complicated and very technological. So what's really the benefit for me as an end user or end client? So there's not only the fact that you have a measure against counterfeit, it's also the fact that these watch brands have a closer relationship to their end clients, even if you buy your watch on the secondary market. You know, right now, the big houses, the big brands, they don't know you if you bought a watch on the secondary market. They are not aware that you are an owner or even a collectionneur of their masterpieces. So the good thing about this solution is not only that you have a better fight or a better weapon against counterfeit, it's also the fact that you move closer to the brand that you already own. Now, there are also a few ideas how you could possibly use this NFT token in the future for other ideas, just apart from making sure that this is not a fake watch. The idea is, if you will sell your watch in the secondary market in the future, you will have to transfer the token. And if you cannot prove that you have the physical piece and the digital twin, you will potentially in, let's say, 10, 15 years from now, not be able to service this watch anymore at an official place. You can certainly service it from someone who doesn't care, but the brand itself will probably say, if you don't have the token, you are not the owner, unless you can prove that you lost your wallet, your phone, whatever, your keys, and we can restore the digital certificate for you. There are other ideas as well. There are industries now establishing actually quite interesting startups who want to create financial services where you could actually use your NFT token that represents your ownership as a collateral to get some financial loans for the watch that you are still wearing. So up to today, and certainly for another few years, normally if you run out of money, you have a beautiful watch, you have to use your watch as a collateral and you get a loan against your watch, but the physical watch is stored somewhere safe, right? In the future, since you cannot sell, move, or do anything with your watch without a digital twin, you can just put the digital twin as a collateral and continue to wear your watch. So this opens completely new ideas of financing. If you own, for example, a collection of beautiful watches, which you can put up as a collateral against a financial loan. Another idea, of course, is that since you have an NFT token that proves that you own a watch, your avatar will be able to wear the same watch in your metaverse, whatever this is going to look like in 5 or 10 years from now. The idea would be, if we really want to buy a beautiful watch, pieces that we buy in this way are part of our identity. And it will be very essential that also our avatars can represent our identities, and therefore it makes sense to continue in this path of creating NFT tokens that represent physical goods. Now, I'm sure there are a few other ideas that we cannot even grasp today or think about because we simply don't have the idea yet. But this new technology that various luxury industry brands have put into place will open a whole new variety of services that the end user can acquire, just because he will become more tech savvy and he will be more involved in this whole blockchain and NFT stuff. But I agree with Pedro that it's way too early. We are not in the mass adoption phase now. We will have to do a lot of education to all people around the world until they understand the benefit of all this increasing technologicalization of our society. Now, what was important to us as Core Technologies is, and that's a point that I would like to put forward, a company such as Richemont, they cannot, blockchain technology is quite a new technology, and often it is not super stable. Especially if you look at Ethereum, suddenly a phenomenon comes up, like CryptoKitties or whatever. Suddenly you have exploding transaction fees, you have congestions, the whole thing doesn't work anymore, everyone is blocked. So we were in front of this big problem where we said, okay, how do we solve, or how do we build this solution on an infrastructure that is reliable, certainly also has a certain longevity component, so be sure that it's not governed by, I don't know, something that can go bankrupt within 3 days. How do we build this on a very reliable fundament that we can, because this is a long-term project, right? We are gonna build this for the next 15, 20, 30 years. So how do we choose the right base to implement this? And we've been doing this with different partners, and we had to choose a blockchain protocol that was less volatile in terms of gas fees and very secure in the way that it is governed. And with this client, we found a way in between. So we have chosen to go for layer 2 blockchains, not Ethereum itself. But in the end, we are big fans of the Ethereum blockchain because it is the biggest network and it is the most stable because it is the one that is the longest on the market. But in the end, let's be honest, the gas fees vary too largely and you cannot build a long-term project on this right now, today, as it stands. So we found a solution to go for various protocols. And what Thomas, my co-founder, has developed during that project as well is he saw the need for large corporates in general to have a solid foundation in a blockchain that will be governed by very trustworthy people and parties. And so we've created this blockchain that protocol is a layer 2 protocol, which is called Dragonfly, which has a very stable transaction fees, which is governed by authorities that are in the aim of longevity and will make sure that these projects will not be reliable on something that is potentially going to die somewhere soon. So another aspect that was incredibly important to us is all these companies, they are starting to build on protocols that today blockchain is heavily criticized for their intensity in power that they need to operate. And this is also something that we did not want to burden the consumers with, that they are aware that we are going to build this on a blockchain solution that is very intense and is working on the expense of sustainability of the environment and the planet. So the Dragonfly blockchain is actually a very economic and sustainable blockchain that doesn't need as much electricity and power than the current established ones. And this is a very important factor to us at Core Technologies, that we always remain sustainable in this area and that we can offer a good blockchain solution to our clients that in the end solves or ticks all the boxes of their problems. And this is also part of the LuxID solution today.
Thank you, Reto, for inviting me again. I think it's the fourth time I'm here. So. No, I think I missed one. So,
okay.
But it's the fourth time at least that I'm here. So it's really exciting. And it's probably the second time I'm showing this device, and it has evolved. If people have been there before, it has evolved quite a lot. And but I want to speak about why do we need something like this at all. And so I want to talk about infrastructure, because infrastructure is really important for any new topic. So to get started, and this was working before. Just a short introduction of myself. So I've been in the blockchain space since 2015. I joined the Ethereum Foundation back then, was part of the advisory board, was traveling through Switzerland explaining what blockchain is to all companies, like insurance companies, banks, all the advisory companies. And then through that, I got in touch with the ecosystem overall and participated in quite a few projects. Swarm City was the first one, a bigger one that I participated in. I organized a tour through Latin America to really get people or bring blockchain products to people that really could use it. And I helped create an app called Relay. That's really interesting, where you can invest on a regular basis into Bitcoin. Just connect your bank account and transfer some money every week, every month, and then you get Bitcoin. So did a few things, but the main thing I always found is there is a need for infrastructure. And you will see this. So there is this evolution of the web, and you probably all have seen that. So there is the web 1.0 is when the internet started. It's companies that gave information. You could read like a newspaper, you could read it now online. There was no interaction yet, there was just information that you could collect, and you could see this on the internet. It was already global, so you could go to a website that is hosted in the US, from Switzerland, or from any other country. So that was already a great evolution step towards newspapers and so on, and this is what we now call Web 1 maybe. Then the second step was that the interaction on the internet. So people could not just consume, they could even participate. They could create things. They could give information and create content themselves. And this is still very much live, and this is the internet we're using today. And the infrastructure that we use today, even for blockchain, is based on this concept of Web 2, we call it. And what we all like now and what we talk about most is the blockchain concept. And I like to call it Web 3, and other people use that same terminology. And it's the Internet of Value. So it's transferring value from one person to another. And it's peer-to-peer. That is very important that we keep this terminology also with the Web 3, because Web 2 is not necessarily peer-to-peer. So I want to start with a few questions. So I want you to raise your hand if you think that Web 3 is censorship resistant. Or the idea of Web 3 should be censorship resistant. Yes, the idea. Okay, let's. So the idea, and I raise my hand too, the idea of Web 3 is that it is censorship resistant. Okay? Very good. Keep your hand up if you. And it's about privacy. We want to have privacy using Web 3. Okay? And it's sort of unstoppable. So not one entity can stop it, can shut it down. Okay? Very good. So many hands are being raised now. So, but all of this, and this is important, all of this only works if Web 3 is decentralized. Yeah. If it's really peer-to-peer and no third party interfering in the middle doing anything. So, another round of questions. And the people that had their hand up, please keep your hand up. Raise your hand if you just had your hand up. So, but lower your hand if you use MetaMask. I hope you know what MetaMask is. If you use MetaMask, lower your hand. Okay? If you use Coinbase or Kraken, lower your hand. Lower your hand if your project uses AWS or any other cloud service. And keep your hand up if you run your own node on your hardware. Okay, very good. There's a few hands at least still up. Okay, but I just want to make you aware, these, where you lower your hand, these are centralized services. These do not allow Web3 as it's supposed to be. Okay, so this is important. And I want to explain what a node is, because maybe that is a difficult terminology. So we need a node like we need a modem to connect to the internet. So you have, everyone has a router at home to connect to the internet. And this has a modem integrated. And to connect to the blockchain, you need a node. And this is a client running on a server or on a device, on a computer, that takes your transaction, that you want to make a payment. I want to make a payment to Guido, okay, on Ethereum. And now this transaction goes into the blockchain and is being participating in the blockchain. This is the first step. And it also validates. So your node has the whole chain, the whole information of one chain, like Ethereum, on its computer, on its storage. So you can verify information through that. And it validates that new information that comes in belongs into that chain, is in the right order of the chain. So it's really important. This is an important piece of infrastructure that everybody needs. So, but I think the modem that connects you to the internet is the most or the best idea to understand this. So we all need a node to interact with blockchain. So this is where AVADO, and this is the device we have, this is the box, where AVADO comes into play. So we provide a convenient and easy solution to run a node at home, that everybody can run their own node. Because it's so important that you run your own node, because otherwise you don't have all the possibilities of Web3. Privacy, permissionless, unstoppable, and so on. So in 2018, we started to create a computer. We bought a simple computer, put a software on it that helps you to run nodes. And right now, from 2018 until today, we sold more than 1,700 of these boxes. So we have 1,700 nodes, or even more, because people can run several nodes, like Ethereum, Bitcoin, Monero, Avalanche, whatever they want, on these devices. So hopefully we provide a lot of infrastructure already to run nodes. But this is not a device that anybody, I don't think there was only 3 people here in this room that even run a node on their own hardware. So this is not a regular device that anybody would buy just from the street, you know? So you have to understand what blockchain means to buy this device. And we want to increase that. We want to make everyone buy a device. So, and infrastructure in general is important. You have to understand why infrastructure is so important for any industry. If you look at the automobile industry, from horses to cars, that was a huge step. But the infrastructure was not given yet. So cars were very slow because the streets were not yet built for these faster horses, let's say. Okay? So at the end, you need somebody needs to build the infrastructure, the streets, the Autobahn in Germany, to have faster cars. And then others will build bigger and faster cars, because now it's more convenient to drive. And the same happened with the internet. So the infrastructure always follows innovations. So you have the internet, you had eBay, Amazon come, and they were used, and they needed more and more broadband. So now telco companies built the infrastructure to increase broadband. And this allowed video distribution through the internet. And that's why now we have YouTube. So again, there's always a cycle where you have innovation, then you have infrastructure, and then you have more innovation on the same level. So without the right infrastructure, we will not have more innovation in blockchain. And we started to look at why are people buying the box. And we started on the top left corner, people that were really knowledgeable, developers, but just didn't want to spend too much time on maintaining and running a node. And this is still, a lot of people do that, but the number of developers is very limited if you look at the world population. So we want to sell a device to everyone, every household in the world. That's the idea, like a router. So what do we need to do? So somehow we need to decrease the knowledge level of the user. So we don't want anybody to understand why they need or what is inside the box, but we want them to understand why they need the box. But this why they need the box, there is something where we saw that proof of stake, when this came in 2020, people were buying our box on a much bigger scale, because now they could run their own solution and stake through our device. And this is an incentive that was created. So now we want to create more incentives for people to run nodes. And a big topic is that blockchain is not a mass market product yet because it's not convenient. We're still explaining the technology instead of the solution of the products. If you look at the internet, if you look at Facebook, nobody is explaining HTTPS or ITP, whatever. I don't even know the terms. I don't know how the internet works. I don't care. I use Facebook, I use services because they solve a problem. And that's what we need to do in blockchain as well. We don't have to explain what blockchain is. That's not important, because people will not use it because it's decentralized. That's not a selling point. So the user doesn't have to have a clue of the technology, but we need products that solve problems. And we need convenience, because that's the main point for products to stay on a centralized level, is because it's so much easier to create convenience on centralized services or solutions than on decentralized. Decentralization is not a feature, it's really a problem actually to create products, though it really is. I've seen this in so many times, and if you go through a project, you always start centralized in the beginning because you say it's easier. I can do this and this and this, and then you say, and at the end I want to add more decentralization. I want to create a DAO maybe later, But you start with an AG or a GmbH. So we have to come, and this is a trilemma which you've seen maybe in the scalability trilemma, but this is the same trilemma, and this is more about users. So we need to add convenience to our products in blockchain. That's the main topic that the people would buy the devices or our solution. If we cannot sell security or privacy too much. People don't care about that. People are still using Facebook after many exploits or other systems. So they don't care about this. This is not a selling point, but convenience is. So we have to have convenience in our products. And that's what we saw when we had integrated staking from Ethereum. When this happened, we tried to integrate this in a way that every user can use it, can really just click on things, and then he can stake. A very simple process, but because even the original process from Ethereum meant you had to go through a command line interface, and you had to put in small pieces of code to participate in staking. And we eliminate that. So our main solution always on this device is no command line at all. It's like a Microsoft Windows. You just click on things and then you work with them.
Staking is an easy way to make money with your crypto. Most people currently use an exchange to stake. But did you know that some exchanges take up to a 25% cut on your staking rewards? Luckily, you don't need an exchange to stake. You can run validators at home on AVADO. How, you ask? It really isn't that hard. Simply get an AVADO, plug it in, deposit your stake, and earn the full reward. By using AVADO's advanced hardware and specific software to stake, you can stay ahead of the curve and truly enjoy earning 100% of the profit instead of giving up 25% to an exchange. That 25% could be worth a lot of money in a few years. That could be a new phone, or a new car, or even a new house. And exchanges know that too. But wait, it can't be that easy. How do I maintain the thing, you might be thinking? The AVADO auto updates ensure your validator runs the latest version. If there is ever any problem and you need assistance, there are thousands of other solo stakers who are happy to help you, as well as our customer support team. And the device also comes with a 2-year warranty. Now relax, have a drink, and let your crypto work in the comfort of your own home. One-time investment, 100% profit. Go to ava.do and get your AVADO today.
So we, as you can see, we don't sell decentralization. We don't sell blockchain. We sell greed, actually. People can keep 100% of their profit. You put money into a system that doesn't need a third party. But still people do this, and here's a chart that shows sort of the how people run nodes or stake right now. There's only 12% that stake on their own devices. All the others use third parties, and they give money away to the third parties, even though the system doesn't need, you don't need to do this. The system is designed peer-to-peer. It's really, I use a system where I can sort of delegate or give money to a contract, and then I receive a return. So that's why what we are selling. We're not selling decentralization. We're not selling that you have to run a node. We're selling that people can earn the 100% profit. So that's a main change that we did, because at the beginning we were selling nodes. We were selling easy setup of a node. But that's only a few people that are really interested in that. But all these people that use our devices have to run a node. So we are creating infrastructure. And we have to think again, why do we want to use blockchain? Because we could use a centralized service. We could run the same thing on a database, which is much easier. You know, if we don't want to have this peer-to-peer, then let's do this on a database and just trust a third party. But actually we say we don't want to do this. But the reality is we still are. We're still giving our keys to a third party, like Kraken, Coinbase, whatever. We're still staking with Coinbase and other services. And they have control over this. And this will be a huge problem also in the governance at some point of these products. And people are still saying that it's very important, the blue part, so the question is, how important is the decentralization of a blockchain for you? And 52% say it's very important to them. But if you looked at the slide before, only 12% really run it the way that it's decentralized. So there's this big misconception of what we think we want to do and how we do it actually. So we created this product as really the most convenient solution. And maybe instead of showing you slides, I can show you the real product. It's probably easier. So we have, so this is my node at home now. I'm connected to my own device at home. So we have a system called Zero Tier. It's an app that you integrate here, and I can choose from different devices that I'm running. So I have remote access. And now this is just a very nice interface, at least what I think. And this is the dApp store. So I can choose from all these solutions. And I can just click on something and then I can install it. So here's the Ethereum node, a Geth client. That's what I need to interact with the Ethereum blockchain. If I want to do a transaction, I can just now go here, click install. It shows me some information. Why should this be interesting to me? You know, is there any dependencies inside the solution? And then I can just click install, and it fetches this from a system that is called IPFS. It's Interplanetary File System. So it's not even a world system. It's even interstellar. This is also a system that is integrated into our solution. So we have a node running for IPFS, and this distributes all the information we have to all the other users, peer-to-peer. So it's not even a server that we own that has this software on it. It is really every user that installs this distributes also the information to other users. So this is peer-to-peer. And you can then install it. Now it's being installed, and it will download so you can see here now, it's installed, and then you can open it and you will see this is this is more of the part that most users don't really need to look at. But now you can follow what is it doing, and it's starting to download the whole chain, from 2014 when they started the Genesis until today. Every transaction is now downloaded. This takes like 2 days because it's more than 1 terabyte of information that needs to be downloaded. But then I have the full chain on my device. And if I use MetaMask, if I go to this little fox here, there is a part where I can select my own node. I can say I want to interact not with the default node. I can really say I want to interact with this node. And here is the endpoint. So here is the endpoint that I can use. Here's an RPC endpoint, sorry. So it's eth-chain geth my.avado. And I put this into MetaMask, and then my sort of communication is only with my node, not with MetaMask or anyone else. And a good friend of mine, Sebastian Bürgel, he made an analysis of MetaMask and what information they collect if you use them. And they have all your information. They have your IP address. They can see every account you have on MetaMask, not just the one you're interacting with. They even transfer this information to a third party called Infura. So there's many parties involved. And now we have the same problem like in Web 2, that my data, even without me knowing it, is transferred to third parties. And they can transfer it further, and they can sort of make a profile of myself. So, but this is, and just want to show you maybe last thing. If I go to, let's change to another device. So on this one, I'm actually staking now. Let's see. So here's many more solutions I'm running. And if I go to the Avalanche, for example, I'm staking on Avalanche. This is what we create as well. This is sort of the interface that users don't have to worry about going to Avalanche or whatever. They have all the information here. They can download their node keys, the backup. They can open the wallet UI, which is then the Avalanche wallet itself, but it's based on our URL, so it's connected. If you look at here, it says mainnet AVADO, so it's actually connected to my AVADO. So again, it's a full closed solution without any third-party involvement. And now I can access my wallet, and I can manage my stake through my own node. And this is a very, very simple computer. I can just hand it around, and you can run many different chains. As you can see on this screen, and this is the last one I want to show.
As long as you have this website, is there anywhere a calculator where I can make a calculation about energy cost, all that stuff?
Yes, we have in a wiki. So we have many solutions where users can find information. We have a YouTube channel, we have a wiki that is populated even by our own users. And there's one part in the wiki that sort of describes what can I actually do with this device, how much do I earn, how much does it cost, and so on.
Yeah, and also, do you have it always online, or is that...
Yes, this runs 24/7, exactly. So you need energy and internet to run this. So this is the cost, the running cost, but it's a one-time investment if you buy the device. Between 1,600 and 2,300 right now.
That's what you make your money, right?
Yes, so our business model right now is selling these devices. It's a one-time cost that people buy, but we see many, so when we started in 2018, it's already 4 years ago, people bought a smaller device because back then we didn't need these huge ones with, this is an i7 CPU. It has 2 or even 8 terabyte of disk space. And some users bought a smaller device back then, and now they upgraded to a bigger device. So we have recurring customers and coming to us, and they can upgrade. We have a special solution for existing customers. And talking about NFTs, because this was the talk before, we integrated NFTs in 2018 already. We have a proof of ownership is the NFT. So every device that is sold, the user goes to nft.avado, and then he puts in his email address that he bought the device with, and he mints an NFT. And he gets this to his account, to his wallet. And this is for us, is made for if we need to do a warranty, then he can claim or say that he owns this device. We don't even need to know any other information. So if he even sells the device to someone else, transfers the NFT, he shows ownership because he has the NFT. He can sign a transaction, and this shows that he's the owner. We also use it for support, and our support is quite unique. because we are a 3-man team. So we are 3 full-time employees, but we have like a community of more than 1,700 people. And every time you buy this device, there's maybe some issue with your internet, because the internet today is not used to having 100 peers connecting to one box. That's not usual. You have Netflix, it's one peer. You know, you have whatever. So this is very strange to some routers. They have firewalls and you have to sort of open ports. So some users have problems running this device from the get-go, and they ask questions. And what we did, we started to put 2% of our revenue into a support budget. And we have Telegram channels, and we integrated a bot in Telegram where a user can say thank you to another user. And this is counted. And the 2% that we have each month available from sales goes into the support budget. So now we pay out, and this is in DAI, in the cryptocurrency. It's a stable coin, so people can buy the device with DAI, they can buy with credit card, but this makes our support scalable. Even though we're a small team, we have a huge support team because every user can earn money. They can earn the money back that they spent on this device when they give support. And we have users that had more money back than they paid for this device. So, but this is really helpful for us because then we have a very reactive community. We have community global, or support givers global. They're on all continents. They're in all time zones, therefore, and they also have the same problems because the router in the US, I don't know how this works, but there is a user in the US that has the same router, and he gives support.
Thank you for having me. My name is Robert Roggenmoser. I'm CEO and founder of SECUROSYS. We're around since 2014, so I think 8-year anniversary is soon up. So out of kindergarten, so in primary. I'm going to switch a little bit. It's going to be quite technical in a sense that we're going to talk about keys. These keys that are your identities, your digital identities, these keys that are your assets, these keys that are your NFTs or represent your NFTs, you know, and how to protect that. And to get into that, I'm going to talk more about banking. So this is kind of a little bit what my agenda is. I'm going to talk about banking and then traditional banking to blockchain banking, and then there's a little thing you said had on the agenda, data protection. So I have something on data protection if you're not tired of me talking about stuff. So anyway, traditional banking. So who's from Switzerland? Who has a Swiss bank account? Thank you very much. You're all indirectly customers of SECUROSYS. So in Switzerland, all banking transactions go through SIX. That's a SIC payment, Swiss Interbank Clearing. And I'm going to quickly explain it because it's the basis is in the end that we also use for blockchain stuff, you know. So I have here Hans pays his electrical bill. I could have said Guido pays his electrical bill. Usually you do, you never. I mean, where is it? Bernd has probably the bigger electrical bill because of his. It's nothing. Okay. So you go in your online banking, enter it, and what happens then? You know, you want to pay from your bank account in UBS to the bank account of the electrical company, which is Zürcher Kantonalbank, ZKB. So UBS sends a transaction to SIX. The transaction is signed by UBS with their private key. Now we start with this thing, private key, public key, private key. There's a key pair, private key, public key, they belong together. SIX has the public key to that private key and can verify the transaction. Then SIX sends a receipt back to the UBS, so they sign it with their private key, and UBS checks it with the public key. Then SIX continues and sends the money, the transaction to ZKB. They sign it with their private key, verify it with the public key, and a receipt comes back. Very simple. This is a star topology, so any new bank can come to this system just by connecting to SIX, so you don't need to know all the other guys. It's a centralized system, you know, works since several years, many years, and they recognize the importance of private keys, that they need to be protected, and they use HSMs, boxes like this here, to keep their private keys in there. Now, when you think about it, it's public key infrastructure. Public key infrastructure is private key, public key. The pair, you know, they belong to each other. They're used to sign a transaction. They're stored in there. And the good thing is, you know, it's a centralized system, controlled. We know the counterparty. If you do a wrong transaction, you could just call the other guy, the other bank, and say, hey, the million I sent you was wrong, please send it back. And typically, it takes a few days and you get your money back. Now, we're moving to blockchain now, so Bitcoin. Or no, I actually have one more thing. This system is, in Switzerland, we managed to send 100 billion Swiss francs every day. Also, 100 Milliarden, 100 billion. On peak days, it's 500 billion. Now the Swiss gross domestic product is around in that range. You know, we send around the yearly Swiss domestic gross product around. This kind of, you know, sometimes it's also the UBS says, we're running out of money, National Bank send us money, and then they send billions at that time. So it's very low cost. You know, it's very low cost. It's transaction costs is like 5 Rappen, also 5 cents per transaction. It's very low cost. Gas prices, I think, are higher at the current date. Most banks in Switzerland are on it, and it's an extension for instant payment, which is good for me because they need more performance, and I probably sell a few more boxes to the banks. And for anybody dealing with us, it's also, this is a system critical for Switzerland is critical infrastructure. So we're going to be around for a while. We're going to be around at least to maintain the boxes for this system. So this is just the first brag in this whole presentation. If I will continue. So our technology stack looks like this. You know, you have a business application that talks to an HSM. So digital assets, I think this is just a refresher for all of you, you know. The assets are stored on the ledger, the blockchain, you know. You can look who has what on the blockchain. Who is an address? You don't know who owns that address. You have a private key, that's the asset key. The private key allows you to spend the money. The public key, which belongs to the private key, is essentially where you get the money to, you know. This is the thing where you actually generate an address from, and that address, it's a hash, now another technical term, it's a hash of the public key, is on the blockchain. So that's all you have there. And I think that's kind of where everybody is kind of, if you have the private key, you have the assets, you know. So nothing new. It's old stuff, you know. So we said, okay, people are going to need something to store the keys. Let's extend the functionality of our HSM. So we have now supported all the algorithms. You know, the last thing, one of the recent things is we did BLS, which is used for Ethereum 2 for staking. We have all the key derivation stuff. You know, we actually do something a little bit special with the address generation. So your public key is kept in the HSM, and only the hash, the address, is given out. So this is actually something that people who think about quantum computers and think they can break all this asymmetric cryptography will make it more difficult for them to use quantum computers. We also extended it for stuff like Corda, R3, and so on, and it has a lot of storage for keys. We can probably store 1 million keys on a single box. Bitcoin transaction. Now, how does this work? So I have here, Sarah has a wallet, has an address in that wallet, and has the private key there, and she spends money, and maybe I could have used Karin, who once sent money to Guido, but now it's Sarah sending money to John. She signs a transaction with her private key. The transaction gets submitted to the blockchain. If you have an AVADO box, you can actually submit it to your own box, and it gets put on the blockchain. So very simple. What are the problems with that? So you need to keep the key secure. Now, if it's just your 0.01 or 0.001 bitcoins, probably a USB stick is good enough. Now, if you're a bank and have suddenly maintained wallets for a lot of customers, so you're a custodian, you want something that's more enterprise worthy, and that's not one of these boxes, actually multiple of these boxes, so you have a redundancy, you have them in different data centers and can make sure you're not going to lose the customer's key. Now, the HSM, as I told you before, in the regular payment system, it's important to keep the private key secure, but here it's even more important because this is a pretty simple box, The application has access credentials and connects to that box. And whatever can connect to the box and submit the transaction, the box will sign it. So if you have a HSM from our competitors, you're missing out on, you have a problem to solve, how to make sure that nobody can send a fraudulent transaction to the HSM. My engineers, I used to be an engineer, now I'm just a danger to engineers, came up with this solution here. So we call this smart key attributes. So to the asset key, to your private key, we can add attributes that say, oh, you can only use that key if certain conditions are fulfilled. And then we sign the transaction. So we can do multi-signature. Multi-signature that's verified in the box here and not on a software layer on a server somewhere, but in the box. So some of these rules here are, you can have a quorum, you need 2 out of 3 people, or you need 2 of the 5 traders plus 1 of the 3 compliance officers have to sign it. Or you can say, when a transaction comes, we do a timeout, we do a 2-hour timeout, because we really want the customer representative call the client and say, hey, you really want to spend $10 million to an address you haven't done anything before with. So it gives the ability to have real banking processes implemented in these rules. You can also, these rules can make for the key, for the signature of the key. You can also have these rules so that you can block a key, that it cannot be used, that the funds cannot be spent. We have customers that have HSMs with us, and they kind of said, use our cloud's HSM, and they said, can you please remove all the access to the HSM, because we have an issue internally, so which can be misunderstood, but in the end we figured it out what they want and gave them that opportunity. And the other thing is, when you have these policies, it shouldn't be that the super admin then can play around with these policies and change them whatever they want. And it needs also multi-signature or multi-authorization. So now, how does this work? You have your key in the HSM. Now we have Sarah again, she initiates a transaction. The transaction goes to the HSM. The HSM says, I'm not going to sign this, you need approvals. The approvals get back and then they get distributed to different people. They can actually deny or approve it. They approve it. The approval goes back to the HSM. The transaction, if the quorum is achieved, the transaction is signed, and it goes back to Sarah, and Sarah can actually then send it to the blockchain. Now that's cool. But we figured out there's a lot of logic. So we built a thing called Transaction Security Broker that takes care of this, collecting the approvals and all these things. And when I go to my technology stack, you know, we have holes there, so I'm going to fill these holes time over time. So now we have a transaction security thing. It's actually not a security critical piece of software, you know. It can run anywhere on a server. So we actually run these things on Azure, on Google. And HSMs have this, are around for quite a bit of years. You know, when Sun was invented in 1980 or so, they came up with the crypto protocol called PKCS11. And most modern software designers don't really want to work with PKCS11, but the HSM still talks PKCS11. So we built a REST API that's in there and makes the life so much easier for all the people using these things. So, okay. So now we have this solution that we sign all the transaction. Now we have from a bank, and I'm quite happy that my big transactions get signed. How about the small ones? You know, I don't want to have my security compliance officer and my traders sign $5 transactions. So how do we do that? How can we make whitelists, you know, and whitelists in a way that not a super admin has control over it and can initiate a transaction, put the address on the whitelist, and so on. So for that, you need something we call trusted execution environment. So you code this and put it on a device that's pretty much unhackable. Unhackable is, it's not a real computer, you know, it's really an input-output machine, you know, it's the inputs are signed, the outputs are signed, the code is signed, so unmodifiable. The whole process is audited and logged, which is really great for compliance folks, for auditors to see what happened, you know. And it's kind of slow because for each time this thing is used, a new virtual machine is generated, built up, booted, and so on. Because if you look at the problems that servers have, Intel servers, ARM servers, and anything, AMD servers, they can read other processes' memories, you know, and that's how they hack. Certain hacks are happening. This thing actually prevents it. And now I have my technology stack here completed, you know. I have a trusted execution environment in here and can build pretty much any banking transaction. Okay, now I'm skipping to another part, and this is about data protection and cloud security, and it's a little bit about privacy too. So we have this issue with the cloud providers that they come to Europe and they say, we build a data center in Switzerland and now we're Swiss. The problem is Microsoft is still an American company, and if some government agency from the US wants to access some files, Microsoft has to comply, or they probably jail the CEO of Microsoft. So pretty much what several courts said, you know, this is no good. So you cannot follow European privacy laws. It also says the BSI, this is the German Ministry for Security and IT, they say you have to separate out how you control things and who has access to what. And a cool case was last year in France. So they collected, they had a registration for COVID vaccinations, had the names there. And then somebody sued them and said, you cannot do that, it's against privacy laws, you know, and they had the whole list on AWS. But then they could prove the judge that it was encrypted on AWS and the keys were kept separate. You know, the encryption keys were kept separate. That said, okay, as long as you keep the keys separate, you're fine. Now, Microsoft is a smart company and wants to make more money. So they came up with a solution. And we're now helping them implement this solution. So what you can do with Microsoft 365, there is something called double key encryption, where you encrypt the file on your laptop, the encrypted file goes to Azure, and the key stays with a system like SECUROSYS 365 that we offer. So how does it really work? You know, you have something that you want to keep secret, for example, the recipe for Coca-Cola. You generate, you first have to set the system up for Microsoft, you know, something called Microsoft Information Protection. You'd make different levels. Some levels are secret, and for those levels you have keys with us. Then the user says, I'm going to protect this, so it generates a local key on the machine, a fresh key. That key is used to encrypt the Word file. Then it goes to, gets a key from SECUROSYS. That key from SECUROSYS wraps that key that was generated. And then that is sent to the cloud. And of course, Microsoft encrypts it again because Microsoft has everything encrypted on their Azure database. And so it's double encrypted. So we went visiting the Swiss data protection officer in Bern, and he looked at us and said, so I can torture SECUROSYS and I can torture Microsoft, but I don't get the data. And he said, yeah, you got it. So that way you can get privacy for your data in the cloud with SECUROSYS, with Microsoft. Of course, Microsoft, for that you need to buy a more expensive license, and you need a service from us. It's not free. For the user, it's pretty simple. You get this field, it's built in already on Excel, on Word, and so on, and you just click the sensitivity and do what you want. If you want to use this across companies, we can, for example, do something with Cryptomountain.com, you know, that Microsoft organization, and SECUROSYS.ch, you know, and create a label for the two of us, and we can encrypt and exchange data without Microsoft being able to see it. There's a lot behind it, and I'm going to skip over this. So there's a big cloud system. We have a cloud system, so you can buy the box and run it yourself. Most people don't want to buy anymore because you need people trained to operate this. We have a cloud system all over the world. In Switzerland, Germany, US, it's operational. And we're about to set something up in Singapore. And unbelievably, Singapore is the most expensive place to buy data centers because they have no room, no power, no nothing. It's just expensive, yeah. So this is another bragging slide. So I have a lot of customers, of course, with SIG. Blockchain, you know, of course, we work with Core. So implicitly, we work with Richemont, you know, so thanks to Core technologies. We have other companies that you might know. Crypto storage, for one, Crypto Finance that was acquired by Deutsche Börse last year. Signum Bank, we are working with SDX, the digital exchange from SIX, the R3. We have companies in Hong Kong with BC Group, OLC, and Hong Kong Wax, and so on, and quite a few others. Consensus, we do some staking with Ethereum 2 staking. Interestingly for us, the Ethereum 2 staking, as soon as it was implemented, we pretty much had no interest in the service because the price of Ethereum went up and nobody cared about staking anymore. So we believe this is the most secure place to keep your cryptos, to keep your keys. The key vault, the cloud key vault to protect cloud systems can be used for many other things. You know, we have a bring your own key system. We work with HashiCorp, CyberArk, and many more. You know, so. And I can show you the box. It makes noise. So the power supply on this box is made for systems that have several kilowatts. We don't really need that in this box. We have quite a low power box. So they took the power supply and essentially turned off the fan, so that's why it's quiet. this is quiet. I can turn it on later to give you the full sound system, you know. This is the box, and this is essentially the remote management terminal. So while this is in the data center, you can have this box to manage the whole system from your desk, from your system. You can also have the cloud service and connect with this box to our cloud service. So you have the control of these things. So I need to turn this on. Starting up. And so, as I said, I'm not an engineer anymore. I was just dangerous. They made it very simple for me. So it's A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. The boss mode. Oh. and so it's pretty much, they said, look, at least you can show something running, something working, and not just an empty box, you know. Which over there, this is an empty box. So I'm just so here I see the HSM that's connected here. This is just a simple switch that's connecting to this thing. If you have multiple systems, you see all them here on this thing. So I'm going to connect to this. It's connected, so this is good. So I can have a status thing here, and you see the same blinking here. You see the blinking here, and you have here a display how much crypto signatures it does. We have no application connecting. There is no crypto signatures being done. So it's here. So we can turn this on later on again, and I can show you some more things. We can make security officers. They also made it simple for me. Typically, security officers are two-factor authenticated. They have cards and a PIN. They made virtual cards for me, so I don't have to remember cards and pins. So I can do security officers just with a PIN, and we can play around with that later if you like to. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, a pleasure to be here, especially after today's exciting adventure which we had on the ski slopes today. And I'm very thankful for the people who were skiing with me because they rescued me, and that means a lot to me, and actually shows me one more time that I have also a very good team member who actually learned fire rescuing, and I was probably one of his live human beings he actually had to train and work on, and of course having some fun and making picture of me when I was in the slope actually transported to the hospital. So iVault is the flagship brand of Vault Security Systems. I'm the CEO and founder. This company actually was founded in the mid-2018, and the main focus of Vault Security, or iVault, was actually the lost and found area, where we actually, this whole idea about lost and found came up because when I moved from the US to Switzerland, I put most of my valuable things to a storage facility. And 5-6 years later, when I checked and see some friends in Florida, I realized everything was stolen, which was for me a little bit I didn't understand it, because you need a lock to come up to the 3rd floor. Everything is with cameras. So for me, basically, it was a clear-cut case. It was an inside job, but I can't prove it. And if you have no evidence, you have nothing in your hands. So basically, that was the whole idea that I thought, hey, maybe you should actually do an app which works real time. When something gets stolen, you can actually push the button and people can help you, and you incentivize the finding through a finder's fee. So that was the whole idea behind it. And so we wrote this beautiful patent with, of course, everything blockchain backed. Now you ask yourself, why do you need a blockchain for that? Good question. Well, because the idea went further and further and further. Let's start there. If you have valuable things and you want to store it somewhere, you probably want to store it somewhere where you feel safe about it and protected. And I think to have a decentralized vault, which only you have an access basically with your private key, I think it can't get better than that. So that's the reason why we said blockchain in one hand, and on the other hand, when something gets stolen, and you have it already in your wallet, in your vault, you just push the button, you have it in the centralized search engine, obviously, and you can put a finder's fee. So, and this is just the beginning of the story, of this adventure. This is the team. And this is my rescue guy on the left-hand side, Guido, which I have to thank very much, and probably till the end of my life. I'm going to talk about this now. what is very cool about that team, everyone has some experience in their own positions, and we are all driven by success. That means we don't get any money or a monthly salary as it is. We are all having shares of the company, and obviously some token will be involved too, which I'm going to explain a little bit later. These are the companies where we worked at, and I don't want to get too much in who is who, because we don't have, I know you guys are here for 2 hours and your ears are already smoking, so I'm gonna pass to the next slide. What's the challenge? Okay, we have like 500 million items which get lost or stolen each and every year in the US. 100 million items get lost or stolen each and every year in Germany. The success rate is under 1.2%, the recovery rate is under 1.2%. We heard in the luxury watch area it's 5%. So there is a big demand for a solution, what we're offering. Besides that, we realized that in the B2B area, also ideas or products get stolen. And how they get stolen? Through counterfeits, through fakes. And that's a big problem. I don't see that, maybe it's a big problem also for the watch industry, but it's not a life-threatening problem. I see a much bigger problem in the pharmaceutical companies, because 1 million people die each and every year because of counterfeit medicine. And there's no way you can change. 1 million people die each and every year because of counterfeit medicine. And why, how? I can explain it real quick. If you buy some medicine at the pharmacy, no problem. If you buy it from your doctor or a hospital, it's authentic, no doubt about it. But if you buy on an online pharmacy, which you probably don't know, it could be in India, it could be in who knows where, and you think, hey, this medicine is pretty cheap, I get it 20% cheaper, and they don't care maybe if you have a prescription or not. And sometimes it's Viagra, fake Viagra, or whatever, and suddenly you have a heart attack and you die, and do a statistic of this 1 million people who died. So we come up with the idea to place on every product basically a chip. But first we did that, before we do that, we created a platform. We created a platform for companies to invite their suppliers, basically to have this chain. So each and every ingredient of a product, basically you put it in, which will then later on shown once you actually scan the product. So here's you can put NFC or RFID chips, depends on the value of the product, because you don't want to put an NFC chip for $1 or 50 cents if the product is worth $20 or $30. Obviously you can use QR codes.
I have a question. When you mention NFC and
RFID,
is it also a combination?
There is combinations, yes. There are combinations. There was a very interesting, there's, for instance, maybe you know those bottles, whiskey bottles or expensive bottles, yeah, sometimes have an NFC chip, the near field communicator, so you can scan the authenticity, but also it has an RFID antenna. When you open it, you know, and you try to fill something else and close it again, you even can see on the cell phone. That's the RFID antenna then. Yes, absolutely, there's a combination of both. But there again, we try not to spend more than 1% of the goods value, because then it's not cost efficient, basically. So once we hook those RFID, but of course we talk to Henkel. Henkel has $20 products, so but they have also problems with counterfeits, and they say, hey, how can we check that? And as you all know, the QR codes, basically 98% of all the QR codes only show you to the brand owner's website, but they don't give you any transparency. Like here, you see the products in original, you can see the supply chain, basically more products, product informations, and we can go even that far that we can put a CO2 footprint, basically, and also gather information of the new client or person who purchased that product. So that's also very beneficial. So it doesn't only show the transparency, the authenticity, but also gives the brand owner possibilities through getting him involved, through upselling him with marketing purposes. So this is a small graphic how this works. Like I said, the platform for the businesses, the NFC RFID chips or QR codes into the products, hidden basically, the QR code obviously not, and then the user can scan with his smartphone the authenticity to transparency. And nowadays, believe it or not, transparency is a big issue. A lot of people and users want to know where they get their product from. Is it sustainable? Is this salad coming from Switzerland or is it coming from Africa? Who knows? But people are more aware, so they want transparency. So what happens if you get more transparency of a product? You will have more trust. And trust is actually a very good thing, also for the companies you're doing business with. So we actually put 3 products on the market successfully. The first one I explained to you, it's iVault, the platform. We released it in October 2019, and so far we actually have created about 20,000 NFTs through QR codes basically. Then we came up a year later with the iVault Track and Trace. These are battery-based GPS trackers, which are military-grade encrypted, 256-bit minimum encryption. Very interesting because lots of companies, especially also in Germany, have problems with stolen goods, which have not a battery outlet, no outlet to the network. So they need battery-based trackers, and so we sold also some of them. And the iVault mobile app, the lost and found idea, which I explained to you before, was released in October 2021, and we already had 20,000 downloads in 5 months and about over 10,000 registered digital products. So this is the base, and we patented the whole thing. We patented the whole system because what we are doing is we want to show the whole life cycle of a product from the birth of the product until the recycle and the end of the product or recycle. So this is the base. This is the base for our iVault Cosmos. Yeah, I explained to you the track and ident, lost and found, share and err, and connect and enjoy and protect and save are the 2 products which we're going to implement in the next 16 months. But the 3 products which we already have in the market are the base for the Cosmos. So track and ident, like I said, transparency is more important. People want to know the authenticity of their product. They want to know that they have an original product. In pharmacies or in medications, we see a lot of thefts. We see also in parts, in the part industry, believe it or not, when you see the parts from elevators, 35% of those are fake parts. And here we're talking about big liability issues. You know, if an elevator drops down because they have a fake part, you know, obviously the inspector of the insurance will come and say, we're not going to pay for that. It's a fake product. And so it's also reputational or image problem what a company takes in account when they are not actually making sure that the products are authentic. And in addition to that, we have the Supply Chain Act next year coming to Germany, which makes companies actually, they make them liable. They have to give a better transparency to make sure that no children work was done, or what is the recycle elements of a product, and they want to have all this transparency. The first year it's definitely about for companies from 3,000 people up. The year after it's 2,000 people up, and in 3 years it's 1,000 people up. But what we know already that they will probably make blockchain also a rule in 2025, because that's the only way how you can find out is this authentic or is it manipulated. And that's obviously, I think, the main reason why companies are using the blockchain.
Has something important ever been stolen from you? Have you ever needed something just for a short while? Or have you wanted to inform your neighbors about an incident? No doubt you've also had to rely on help from others before. And especially in a digitally networked world, shouldn't it be much easier to reach other people? But somehow, the opposite seems to be true. This is where iVault comes in. The award-winning app based on blockchain technology lets you record, for instance, all your assets and the important things in your life securely with encryption. This way, you can inform your community about a lost item and set a finder's reward, for example, to increase your chances of finding it again. With iVault, you stay in contact with your community, no matter if you want to borrow something for a while or inform your neighborhood about an incident and network with the right people. Help us make the world a little better and become part of the iVault community now. iVault. Never miss a thing.
So basically, it's not only one use case, it's more. It's like the lending, the sharing, as also sending information about events. Obviously, not all of the parts are blockchain based. I have to be perfectly honest. Why we do that? Because the app is only as good as much people you have using it. You need the critical mass. You know, because without the critical mass, if you have, there are some competitors, they have like 400 or 200 downloads since 2 or 3 years and they think they have a good lost and found app. It's ridiculous. You need at least millions to make it work. And I will explain later how we get those millions. It's not going to take too long. So that's what I'm definitely going to show you guys. So, okay, so the lost and found app, I told you guys before, a lot of items get lost or stolen each and every year, and that's the official numbers. The blackout numbers are probably double as big because a lot of people don't register something stolen or lost, and the recovery rate is under 1.2%. So basically, you are working and helping insurance companies to retrieve products again. You are helping also the police force who actually is not caring about petty theft or grand theft because they have other problems. So you're really helping big institutions with this kind of an app. And especially when there's a finder's fee involved, it's a win-win situation for each and every party. So there are some screenshots of the app. Here you see on the right-hand side the vault. It's on Google on App Store at the moment, and we actually released it in the US, and it will be released in the DACH countries from the third quarter this year. Okay, share and earn, and that's a big thing in my opinion because this is how you can attract the critical mass, in my humble opinion. So what happens if you today want to donate clothes which you don't use anymore? You put them in a bag and throw it into some kind of place where they donate clothes. And you think it will be donated to some people in Africa. No, not really. They're actually selling your clothes if they are actually in a good condition. So, okay, that's one thing. So what happens if you're actually selling your own product through the app, which we are creating now, the share and earn position, by making every user, giving every user the possibility to have their own iVault shop. So imagine students, universities, they're all low on cash, but they're always humble to make some money on the side. So if you give them the possibility to say, hey, sell your stuff on the iVault shop or lend your stuff on the iVault shop and make some money on the sides, and besides that, because you work actually sustainable because not new products were actually created or manufactured, you get some eco points. You know, that means this eco points is then another motivation, I would say. If he gets like 10 eco points, for instance, he gets 10 tokens as an airdrop. So now he not only gets money for the goods or items he sold and helps to have this world a little bit more sustainable, but in addition to that, he gets a reward from us when he reaches some kind of amount of eco points. I think this is a really cool idea because, you know, if you think about TikTok, Instagram, you name it, most of those apps actually are more about the self-expression of someone and making you or some other people feeling bad. But this has a more deeper reasoning why people can have a self-expression to be sustainable, for instance, and make money in two sides. Okay, connect and enjoy is something what we want to actually also enforce. That was the last planet of our universe. Here we want to make sure that the information, all the stuff what you have in your wallet basically is not open. Like when you have information on Facebook, you know, there's always a possibility that they get your information and, you know, sell it and make some personalized campaigns about you. But here, whatever you have in your wallets is in your vault. So basically, nobody has. It's in your decision to sell it, to lend it, to put it because basically, like Carla said, every time when you make a picture and put it on the wall, you automatically have an NFT. So that NFT you can rent, sell, and make this transfer of ownership. And of course, then it's a big possibility also for companies who want to get into the metaverse, don't know how. because sometimes they are afraid, they don't want to get too tacky or cheesy in the metaverse, to give them a possibility with the community to get into the metaverse. And for us, it's also very important to make those gamifications to get into the critical mass. What is a good gamification? In my point of view, I will come when it comes to marketing, but protect and save, I think that's the last planet of our cosmos, is a very important thing nowadays, because it's a requirement for tracking from source to customer, and that's the life cycle of the product, which I said before. From the birth of the product, you have already implementing the information on an NFC chip or on a QR code. You send that, actually the proof of the authenticity can make through any smartphone from the user, and basically you can reward also the user if he actually supports recycling for eco points. But that's a little bit far-fetched, we get to that later, but this is all possible to make an incredible strong ecosystem where people can enjoy and also protect our environment. So, and that of course is amazing for the sustainable development goals of the UN, and helps definitely to get closer to that goal. So the competition, okay, we came with big numbers, obviously. Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb, Nextdoor, OpenSea, and iVault. We are actually offering everything what those companies offering, just with the difference, our transaction cost, if you sell something on that platform on iVault, is very low, between 3 cents and it goes up to 45 cents once we have this critical mass, because then the whole platform is more worth, obviously. So when you sell something on Amazon, you pay up to 30, sometimes even 35%, and you can't sell as a private user, you have to be a company. And that's all a problem, and I think the sustainability is a big point when you get actually also rewarded to be sustainable. All of those companies doesn't offer that, but it shows you, I mean, in the social media area, there's 3.5 billion users so far, and most of those platforms are not really fair, are not also rewarding people for being sustainable. So that's a big opportunity, I think, and we should go for the stars and not for small numbers. What's the goal? We want to have 50 million users in the next 5 years, and we believe with a low transaction fee and with a lot of marketing like gamifications. What do I mean gamifications? Well, if you play the hide and seek game, for instance, you're hiding virtual reality or in physical ways things in a park, and say to the users, hey, you can win 1,000 francs prize money if you find all this hidden stuff as a first. In the second place, $500, 500 francs, the third one 100 francs. You can do it globally, to attract more users to that platform. And you can play other games obviously. So we want to go also to the universities, because we believe universities are very open. We realize that most students are very sustainable, obviously, because they want to have the planet which we enjoyed the past 30 years for the next 30 years also for their kids. So that's also something what we are targeting this year through regional marketing, and expand obviously to the bigger cities and to the rural areas after that. So, okay, this is the roadmap where we started, where we are right now. So we are actually scaling what we achieved so far, and also working on our technical side to create this earn and share part of the app, because we believe it has a huge potential, and we're getting closer to our goal. So yeah, that's how it will go. Later on, putting the tokenization into play, and also getting more interoperative with other blockchains. Obviously, when you want to reach 50 million users, you can't do that with a public blockchain. I discussed it a little bit earlier with Bernd, because some congestion issues, scalability issues, also the pricing of transactions. if you work with a blockchain where you don't know the transactions, or if you're not in control of the transactions, they suddenly can go up from one year to the other, and then the whole business plan is actually not making any sense with the low transaction fees which we are trying to offer. So basically that's it. I'm open for any kind of questions. I made it short.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Arman, for this presentation. Are there questions?
Oh, danke.
Yeah.
Have you considered the white labeling? For example, there's a company in Italy called Certilogo who are doing what you're doing, but specifically for clothing. So they have a bunch of brands, the big ones, and they probably have quite a few users already.
There is some companies actually who are in the fashion industry. They're doing a lot of best practice cases at the moment, also with NFCs, which are obviously also washable and durable, and we're offering also white label solutions. It doesn't need to be iVault all the time on the platform's name, definitely. So we are open for that. Everything clear?
Yeah, I see quite a number of potential collaboration, and I wanted to ask you, what is your go-to-market strategy? I was a little bit questioning the competitor slide, because when you talk about Facebook as competitor, it sounds a bit strange to me, but I believe then I understood that you just have some characteristics mentioned, I guess.
Absolutely, but I also think that the trend for Facebook, where most of young people it used to be trendy 10 years ago, Facebook. It's not trendy anymore today. People are looking for new media, looking for new outlets where they can actually put their trust in. And I think when you offer them a secure platform where you're not selling their data to other companies, that's definitely something where you have a potential, And Facebook, on the other hand, it's also supporting, or it's also it's actually called Meta now. Instagram belongs to Meta, WhatsApp belongs to Meta, and the trend towards Meta or Facebook or Instagram as it is not like it used to be 10 years ago. So I think there is a big chance that people can, if they look around and you do the right go-to-market strategy, you can win those people. Not all of them, obviously, but some of them.